Book 3, Canto 9, The Legend of Brito Martis. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Nicholas James Bridgewater. The Faerie Queene by Edmund Spenser. Book 3, The Legend of Brito Martis, Canto 9. Malbecco will no strange knights host for peevish jealousy. Paridel gist with Britomart both show their ancestry. Redoubted knights and honourable dames, to whom I level all my labours end, right sore I fear, least with unworthy blames, this odious argument my rhymes should shend, or aught your goodly patience offend. Whiles of a wanton lady I do write, which with her loose incontinence doth blend the shining glory of your sovereign light, and knighthood foul to face by a faithless knight. But never let the ensample of the bad offend the good, for good by paragon of evil may more notably be rad, as white seems fairer matched with black atone. Nay, all are shamed by the fault of one, for lo in heaven, whereas all goodness is, amongst the angels a whole legion of wicked sprites did fall from happy bliss. What wonder then if one of women all did miss? Then listen, lordings, if ye list to weet, the cause why Satrain and Paridel mote not be entertained as seemed meet into that castle, as that squire does tell. Therein a cankered crabbed carle does dwell, that has no skill of court nor courtesy, ne cares what men say of him ill or well, for all his days he drowns in privity, yet has full large to live and spend at liberty. But all his mind is set on mucky pelf, to hoard up heats of evil gotten mass, for which he others wrongs and wrecks himself, yet is he linked to a lovely lass, whose beauty doth her bounty far surpass. To which, to him, both far unequal years, and also far unlike conditions has, for she does joy to play amongst her peers, and to be free from hard restraint and jealous fears. But he is old and withered like high, unfit fair ladies service to supply, the privy guilt whereof makes him all why suspect her guilt and keep continual spy upon her with his other blinked eye, ne suffereth he resort of living wight, approach to her ne keep her company, but in close bower her mused from all men's sight, deprived of kindly joy and natural delight. Malbecco he and Helenor she hight, unfitly yoked together in one team. That is the cause why never any knight is suffered here to enter but he seem such as no doubt of him me need misdeem. Thereat Sir Satrine gan smile and sigh, extremely mad the man I surely deem, that weens with watch and hard restraint to stye a woman's will which is disposed to go astray. In vain he fears that which he cannot shown, for who wots not that woman's subtle ties can guile an Argus when she list misdown? Is it not iron bands, nor 100 eyes, nor brassen walls, nor many wakeful spies, that can withhold her wilful wandering feet? But fast goodwill with gentle courtesies, and timely service to her pleasures meet, may her perhaps contain, that else would all gates fleet. Then is he not more mad, said Paridel, that hath himself unto such service sold, in doleful thraldom all his days to dwell? For such a fool I do him firmly hold, that loves his fetters though they were of gold. But why do we devise of others ill, whiles thus we suffer this same dotard old to keep us out in scorn of his own will, and rather do not ransack all, and himself kill? Nay, let us first, said Satrain, entreat the man by gentle means to let us in, and afterwards affray with cruel threat, ere that we to force it do begin. Then if all fail, we will by force it win, and eke reward the wretch for his misprise, as may be worthy of his heinous sin. That counsel pleased, then Paridel did rise, and to the castle gate approached it quiet wise. Whereat soft knocking entrance he desired, the good man's self, which then the porter plied. Him answered that all were now retired unto their rest, and all the keys confide unto their master, who in bed was lied, that none him durst wake out of his dream, and therefore them of patience gently pried. Then Paridel began to chaunge his theme, and threatened him with force and punishment extreme. But all in vain, for naught mote him relent, and now so long before the wicked fast, they waited, and the night was forward spent, and the fair welkin foully overcast, gan blowing up a bitter stormy blast, with shower and hail so horrible and dread, that this fair many were compelled at last to fly for succour to a little shed, the which beside the gate for swine was ordered. It fortuned soon after they were gone, another night toon tempest thither brought, came to that castle, and with earnest moan, like all the rest laid entrance dear besought, but like so as the rest he prayed for naught, for flatly he of entrance was refused. Sorely thereat he was displeased, and thought how to avenge himself so sore abused, and evermore the carle of courtesy accused. But to avoid the intolerable stour, he was compelled to seek some refuge near, and to that shed to shroud him from the shower he came, which full of guests he found whileere. So as he was not let to enter there, whereat he gan to wex exceeding wroth, and swore that he would lodge with them I fear, or them dislodge, all were they lief or loth, and so defied them each, and so defied them both. Both were full loth to leave that needful tent, and both full loth in darkness to debate, yet both full lief him lodging to have lent, and both full lief his boasting to abate. But chiefly Paridel his heart did grate, to hear him threaten so despitefully, as if he did a dog to kennel rate, that durst not bark, and rather had he die, than when he was defied in coward corner lie. Though hastily remounting to his steed, he forth issued like as a boisterous wind, which in the earth's hollow caves hath long been hid, and shut up fast within her prisons blind, makes the huge element against her kind to move and tremble as it were aghast, until that it an issue forth may find. Then forth it breaks, and with his furious blast confounds both land and seas, and skies doth overcast. Their steel-head spears they strongly couched, and met together with impetuous rage and force, that with the terror of their fierce affret they rudely drove to ground both man and horse, that each a while lay like a senseless corse. But Paridel, sore bruised with the blow, could not arise the counter-charge to scourse, till that young squire him reared from below. Then drew he his bright sword, and gan about him throw. But Satrain forth stepping did them stye, and with fair treaty pacified their ire. Then when they were accorded from the fray, against the castle's lord they gan conspire, to heap on him due vengeance for his ire. They being agreed, and to the gates they go, to burn the same with unquenchable fire, and that uncourteous carle their common foe, to do foul death to die, or wrap in grievous woe. Malbecco, seeing him resolved indeed to flame the gates, and hearing them to call for fire, in earnest ran with fearful speed, and to them calling from the castle wall, besought them humbly him to bear withal, as ignorant of servants' bad abuse, and slack attendance unto strangers' call. The knights were willing all things to excuse, though not believed, and entrance late did not refuse. They being brought into a comely bower, and served of all things that mote needful be, yet secretly their host did on them lower, and welcome more for fear than charity. But they dissemble what they did not see, and welcome themselves each gan undight, their garments wet and weary armour free, to dry themselves by Vulcane's flaming light, and eke their lately bruised parts to bring in plight. And eke that stranger knight amongst the rest was for like need enforced to disarray, though when as veiled was her lofty crest, her golden locks that were in trammels gay, upbounden did themselves adown display, and wrought into her heels like sunny beams, that in a cloud their light did long time stay. Their vapour vaded show their golden gleams, and through the pursant air shoot forth their azure streams. She also doffed her heavy habergeon, which the fair feature of her limbs did hide, and her well-plighted frock, which she did won, to tuck about her short when she did ride. Her low let fall and flow from her lank side, down to her foot with careless modesty. Then of them all she plainly was espied, to be a woman white, and wist to be the fairest woman white that ever eye did see. Like as Minerva being late returned from slaughter of the giants conquered, where proud Enceladus wide nostrils burned, with breathed flames like to a furnace red, transfixed with the spear down tumbled dead, from top of Hemus by him heaped high, hath loosed her helmet from her lofty head, and her Gorgonian shield gins to untie, from her left arm to rest in glorious victory. Which when as they beheld they smitten were, with great amazement of so wondrous sight, and each on other, and they all on her, stood gazing as if sudden great affright had them surprised at last avising right her goodly personage and glorious hue, which they so much mistook they took delight in their first error, and yet still anew with wonder of her beauty fed their hungry view. Yet note their hungry view be satisfied, and seeing still the more desire to see, and ever firmly fixed did abide in contemplation of divinity. But most they marvelled at her chivalry and noble prowess, which they had approved, that much they feigned to know who she mote be. Yet none of all them her thereof amoved, yet every one her liked, and every one her loathed. And Paridel, though partly discontent with his late fall and foul indignity, yet was soon won his malice to relent, through gracious regard of her fair eye, and knightly worth, which he too late did try, yet tried did adore. Supper was dight, then did Malbecco prayed of courtesy, that of his lady they might have the sight, and company at meat to do them more delight. But he, to shift their curious request, gan causen why she was not come in place, her cressid health, her late recourse to rest, and humid evening ill for sick folks' case. But none of those excuses could take place, ne'er would they eat, till she in presence came. She came in presence with right comely grace, and fair they saluted as became, and showed herself in all a gentle courteous dame. They sate to meat and satrain his chaunce, was her before and Paridel beside, but he himself sate looking still askance, gainst Britomart and ever closely eyed Sir Satrain, that glances might not glide, but his blind eye that sided Paridel all his demesnure from his side did hide. On her fair face so did he feed his fill, and sent close messages of love to her at will. And ever and anon, when none was ware, with speaking looks that close embassage bore, he roved at her and told his secret care, for all that art he learned had of yore. Ne was she ignorant of that lewd yore, but in his eye his meaning wisely read, and with the like him answered evermore. She sent at him one fiery dart, whose head empoisoned was with privy lust and jealous dread. He from that deadly throe made no defence, but to the wound his weak heart opened wide. The wicked engine, through false influence, passed through his eyes, and secretly did glide into his heart, which it did sorely gride. But nothing new to him was that same pain, ne pain at all, for he so oft had tried the power thereof, and loved so oft in vain. That thing of course he counted love to entertain. Thenceforth to her he sought to intimate his inward grief by means to him well known. Now Bacchus' fruit out of the silver plate he on the table dashed as overthrown, or of the fruitful liquor overflown, and by the dancing bubbles did divine, or therein right to let his love be shown, which well she read out of the learned line, a sacrament profane in mystery of wine. And when so of his hand the pledge she wrought, the guilty cup she feigned to mistake, and in her lap did shed her idle draught, showing desire her inward flame to slake. By such close signs they secret way did make unto their wills, and one eye's watch escape. Two eyes him needeth for to watch and wake, who lovers will deceive. Thus was the ape by their fair handling put into Malbecco's cape. Now when of meats and drinks they had their fill, purpose was moved by that gentle dame unto those knights adventurous to tell of deeds and arms which unto them became, and every one his kindred and his name. Then Paridel, in whom a kindly pride of gracious speech and skill his words to frame abounded, being glad of so fit tide, him to commend to her thus spake of all well-eyed: Troy, that art now naught but an idle name, and in thine ashes buried low dost lie, though whilom far much greater than thy fame before that angry gods and cruel sky upon thee heaped a direful destiny, which boots it boast thy glorious descent, and fetched from heaven thy great genealogy, sith all thy worthy praises being blent, their offspring hath embassed and later glory shent. Most famous worthy of the world, by whom that war was kindled which did Troy inflame, and stately towers of Ilion whilom brought unto baleful ruin was by name. Sir Paris, far renowned through noble fame, who through great prowess and bold hardiness from Lacedaemon fetched the fairest dame that ever Greece did boast or knight possess, whom Venus to him gave for meed of worthiness. Fair Helen, flower of beauty excellent, and girlond of the mighty conquerors, that madest many ladies dear lament the heavy loss of their brave paramours, which they far off beheld from Trojan towers, and saw the fields of fair Scamander strown with carcasses of noble warriors, whose fruitless lives were under furrows sown, and Xanthus' sandy banks with blood all overflown. From him my lineage I derive aright, who long before the 10 years' siege of Troy, whilst yet on Ida he a shepherd hight, on fair Oenone got a lovely boy, whom for remembrance of her past joy she of his father Paris did name, who after Greeks did Priam's realm destroy, gathered the Trojan relics saved from flame, and with them sailing hence to the Isle of Paris came. that was by him called Paris, which before hight Nausa there be many years did reign, and built Nausical by the Pontic shore, the which he dying left next in remain to Paradas his son, from whom I Paradel by kin descend, but for fair ladies' love and glory's gain, my native soil I've left my days to spend, in sowing deeds of arms my lives and labours end. When as the noble Britomart heard tell of Trojan wars and Priam's city sacked, the rueful story of Sir Paradel, she was empassioned at that piteous act, with zealous envy of Greeks' cruel fact, against that nation from whose race of old she heard that she was lineal extract, for noble Britain sprung from Trojans bold, and Troynovant was built of old Troy's ashes cold. Then sighing soft awhile, at last she thus: O lamentable fall of famous town, which reigned so many years victorious, and of all age ye brought the sovereign crown, in one sad night consumed and thrown down. What stony heart that hears thy hapless fate is not empirist with deep compassion, and makes ensample of man's wretched state, that flowers so fresh at morn and fades at evening late? Behold, sir, how your pitiful complaint hath found another partner of your pain, for nothing may impress so dear constraint as country's cause and commune foes' disdain. But if it should not grieve you, back again to turn your course I would to hear desire, what to Aeneas fell, sith that men say he was not in the city's woeful fire consumed, but did himself to safety retire. Anchises, son begot of Venus fair, said he, out of the flames for safeguard fled, and with a remnant did to sea repair, where he through fatal error long was led for many years, and weetless wandered from shore to shore amongst the Lybic sands. Ere rest he found, much there he suffered, and many perils passed in foreign lands, to save his people sad from victors' vengeful hands. At last in Latium he did arrive, where he with cruel war was entertained of inland folk, which sought him back to drive, till he with old Latinus was constrained to contract wedlock, so the fates ordained. Wedlock contract is blood, and eke in blood accomplished, that many dear complained, the rival slain. The victor through the flood escaped hardly praised his wedlock good. Yet after all he victor did survive, and with Latinus did the kingdom part. But after, when both nations 'gan to strive into their names the title to convert, his son Iulus did from thence depart, with all the warlike youth of Trojans blood, and in long Alba plast his throne apart, where fair it flourished and long time it stode, till Romulus renewing to Rome remode. There, said Britomart, afresh appeared the glory of the later world to spring, and Troy again out of her dust was reared, to sit in second seat to sovereign king of all the world under her governing. But a third kingdom yet is to arise out of the Trojans' scattered offspring, that in all glory and great enterprise both first and second Troy shall dare to equalize. It Troynovant is height that with the waves of wealthy Thamis washed is along, upon whose stubborn neck whereat he raves with roaring rage, and sore himself does throng, that all men fear to tempt his billows strong. She fastened hath her foot, which stands so high that it a wonder of the world is song. In foreign lands, and all which passen by, beholding it from far, do think it threats the sky. The Trojan brute did first that city found, and Highgate made the mere thereof by west, an overt gate by north that is the bound toward the land, two rivers bound the rest. So huge a scope at first him seemed best to be the compass of his kingdom's seat, so huge a mine could not in lesser rest, nay in small meres contain his glory great, that Albion had conquered first by warlike feat. "Ah, fairest lady knight," said Paridel, "pardon I pray my heedless oversight, who had forgot that whilom I heard tell, from age mnemon for my wits being light. Indeed he said, if I remember right, that of the antique Trojan stock there grew another plant that wrought to wondrous height, and far abroad his mighty branches threw into the utmost angle of the world he knew. For that same brute too much he did advance in all his speech was Silvius his son, whom having slain through luckless arrow's glance, he fled for fear of that he had misdone, or else for shame so foul reproach to shown, and with him led to sea and youthly train, where weary wandering they long time did won, and many fortunes proved in th'ocean main, and great adventures found that now were long to sain. At last by fatal course they driven were into an island spacious and broad, the furthest north that did to them appear, which after rest they seeking far abroad, found it the fittest soil for their abode, fruitful of all things fit for living food, but wholly wast and void of peoples trode, save an huge nation of the Geants abode, that fed on living flesh and drunk men's vital blood, whom he through weary wars and labours long subdued with loss of many Britons bold, in which the great Goy Magot of strong Corinius and Cowlin of Debon old were overthrown and laid on th'earth for cold, which quaked under their so hideous mass, a famous history to be enrolled in everlasting monuments of brass, that all the unique worthies' merits far did pass. His work great Troynovant, his work his ake, fair Lincoln both renowned far away, that who from east to west will endlong sake, cannot two fairer cities find this day, except Cleopolis, so heard I say. Old Mnemon, therefore, sir, I greet you well, your country kin, and you entirely pray of pardon for the strife which late befell betwixt us both unknown, so end Paridel. But all the while that he these speeches spent, upon his lips hung fair Dame Helenor, with vigilant regard and due attent, fashioning worlds of fancies evermore in her frail wit, that now her quite forlore, the wheels unwares away her wondering eye, and greedy ear her weak heart from her bore, which he perceiving ever privily, in speaking many false bell-guards at her let fly. So long these knights discoursed diversely of strange affairs and noble hardiment, which they had passed with mickle jeopardy, that now the humid night was far forth spent, and heavenly lamps were half and dearly brent, which the old man seeing well who too long thought every discourse and every argument, which by the hours he measured besought them go to rest, so all unto their bowers were brought. End of Canto 9, Book 3.